Introduction to the Night of the Lost Full-Time Expert. Single female lead plus non-invincible flow, I followed Chu Yunxiu to the Misty rain for the sake of saving my life. After the car accident, there were many memories in my mind that didn't belong to me. But in the 4 years of Yanyu, it did not change or help Yanyu win a championship. Perhaps it's time to make a change. Introduction week, move to the main text. Chapter 1. Misty Rain Night. You are listening at novel full.audio. Brain storage area not good. Desert solitary smoke caught the flaw of the Yanyu team. Desert solitary smoke took away the Fengqing Yanyu, and Yanyu left only one person for all things to grow. 3-on-1, I'm afraid this Deputy Captain Yanyu won't be able to create miracles. All things grow and have zero health. Congratulations to the Bata team for winning this game. On December 4, 2022, the 20th round of Honor's 8th season. Yanyu played against Batu at home, 4.6. The Yanyu team's ranking dropped by 1 place to 5th place. The Batu players calmly packed their belongings and left the competition room. On the other hand, Yanyu fell into silence. Yanyu doesn't need to tidy up things here, after all, the equipment in this training room is the one they use conveniently. But the reason why he didn't leave was entirely because Chu Yunxiu hadn't stood up yet, and the few people in the Misty Rain didn't dare to move. In individual and arena matches, only one individual match was won by the strength of Captain Han Wenqing of Batu. The situation was completely dominated by smoke and rain, but the team match was a mess. Not long after the opening, the opponent caught the opportunity to kill 3 people. So, the players of Yanyu were somewhat frightened and waiting for Chu Yunxiu's lecture. What are you still doing here? Pack up and get ready to go out for an interview. Chu Yunxiu turned her head for a long time and saw several people who were afraid to speak. Oh. Okay, Chu team. The few people who were seen by Chu Yunxiu quickly nodded and ran out as if fleeing. After these few people left, there were only 2 people left in the competition room. These people, really, I didn't say I wanted to scold them. Chu Yunxiu stood up helplessly. After all, Batu has Han Wenqing and Zhang Xinjie, losing is a normal thing. Or, to put it another way, it's already quite good to be able to score 4 points in a personal arena competition. After all, Yanyu is just such an awkward team. Then you still have a straight face. Anning stood up and pulled out her account card. I've been playing for too long, I'm a bit tired. Chu Yunxiu moved her wrist. Han Wenqing doesn't know how to maintain it, and he's not young anymore. Surprisingly, he can still fight like this. This was almost Han Wenqing's personal show. Faced with the peaceful growth of all things, Li Hua's forest and grass were startled, and Chu Yunxiu's wind and rain were able to break through the encirclement and join forces with Batu's army. Let's go, little brother. Chu Yunxiu stood at the door, carrying her bag. Looking at the figure that was much more mature than 4 years ago, I let out a peaceful sigh. Unfortunately, if Chu Yunxiu were in the Misty Rain, his entire career would probably have nothing to do with the championship. 4 years ago, when Anning was an ordinary student, he was hit by a speeding car and almost lost his life. Fortunately, Chu Yunxiu, who had lost the game and sneaked out to go shopping, was taken to the hospital and saved his life. Anning is a child who grew up in an orphanage. With the help of Chu Yunxiu and Chu's parents, she was able to receive subsequent medical treatment. I have become familiar with the Chu family since coming and going, and every year we celebrate the Chinese New Year at the Chu family. After graduating from high school, he refused Chu's father and mother's plan to let him continue his college education. He peacefully came to Yanyu and became his youth academy, debuting in the 5th season. I just missed out on the best newcomer at that time. In the 6th season, Anning gradually secured the position of the main force in the team, and the growth of all things became a reliable shield for Yanyu. Unfortunately, in that season, Yanyu still stayed in 4th place. In the 7th season, Ning Ning trained as a guardian angel account outside of the Cavaliers. This season, Yanyu directly rushed to the runner-up, only one step away from the championship. In the final match, both sides drew before, so this match is crucial. The individual competition was won by Wei Chao, and the arena competition was won by Yanyu. 3-2. This also represents the possibility of no extra time. So, in the team game, both sides were doing their best. After playing for a long time, one person each lost on the field. Wang Jieshi and Chu Yunxiu have both found each other, but Wang Bueyixing and Fengqing Yenyu's health is not very healthy, so it is basically a level where one or two skills can be taken away. And Deng Fuxing lived alone near Chu Yunxiu, preparing to use his skills to stun Chu Yunxiu. So, Anning directly operated the growth of all things and rushed forward. The shield strikes of the two knights collided with each other's shields. Both solitary living and the growth of all things are dizzy. But this was also planned by Anning long ago. After the dizziness ended, Anning prepared to protect the remaining Lu Yining and Sun Liang from the misty rain. As long as the wind and rain replace Wang Bueyixing, the remaining few people of Wei Chao will not be afraid. Behind Wang Bueyixing appeared the forest dark grass startled by the misty rain, while behind the misty rain of Fengqing was the flying sword of Wei Chao. The strategies of both sides are the same. The only difference is in treating the contestants. At this distance and location, the treatment of Yanyu cannot keep up. But the other party is different because their guardian angel is the god of healing. The last dance of Feng Shiqian directly extinguished Yanyu's hope of winning the championship. Misty Rain can only regretfully win the runner-up. And in the 8th season, we encountered the current cycle of great success. So, Anning sighed. Due to a car accident a few years ago, Ning Ning has some memories in her mind that do not belong to her. Like a dream, it vaguely tells some memories similar to the future progress of this world. But Anning has never really believed it. After all, how could Jusher kick Yi Qiu away? Little brother, don't be fooled. Watching Anning remain motionless for a while, Chu Yunxiu urged her. After all, there are still journalists waiting for interviews outside. Okay. As the deputy captain of Yanyu, Anning rarely attends interviews, but every time, Anning waits outside the interview booth for Chu Yunxiu to finish the interview. I casually said a few irrelevant words to the reporter. Chu Yunxiu was the first to return to the lounge, while Anning went out for a stroll. In the past, Chu Yunxiu and Ning would come to the opposite side of Yanyu to eat spicy hot pot. When Chu Yunxiu was still a newcomer and Anning was not a player, the two could still sneak out together. Now, it's difficult for Chu Yunxiu to show up. As a knight, Anning may be well known when it comes to name and ID, but when it comes to appearance, it's not very meaningful. Moreover, since Chu Yunxiu became famous, she has to keep her figure under management because of many businesses in business. Spicy hot pot, a food that will make you fat, will say goodbye to Chu Yunxiu. Night, S City, Yanyu Brigade Base. Chu Yunxiu leaned against the railing, smoking, watching the bustling crowd not far away. Anning pushed open the door of the balcony. What's wrong? The TV drama you watched is unfinished. A bowl of spicy hot pot was held in a peaceful hand. No, Yu reading www.yuyukeungshu.net was simply postponed to the end of next week, but there will be a game next week, so I'm not in a good mood. As soon as he finished speaking, the cigarette box placed on the windowsill was taken away by Anning. Didn't you say you wanted to smoke less? With just a little self-control, how can you lead Yanyu to win the championship? I casually threw the cigarette pack into my shoulder bag. Anning doesn't smoke, but she promised Chu Yunxiu's parents to supervise her smoking. So in the past 2 years, she confiscated Chu Yunxiu's cigarettes and almost filled Anning's backpack. I bought it for you. Tranquility handed the spicy hot pot to Chu Yunxiu. Anning knew the current Chu team's preferences, and when Ning had an accident that day, he was also sent to the hospital by Chu Yunxiu, who sneaked out of the club to eat spicy hot pot. What day is it today? The ban has been lifted, sister. I'm so touched. Chu Yunxiu couldn't wait to open spicy hot pot directly on the table on the balcony. Cut, slightly spicy. Seeing the soup inside, Chu Yunxiu complained. Today is my birthday, and it's also the day I've known you for 4 years. Happy birthday, little brother. Information that can be disclosed. Peace occupation. Night, growth of all things, guardian angel, cloud sea and dust clear, tactics. Operation. Consciousness. Continuous. Outbreak. Stability. Courage. Command. Experience. The upper limit is 6 stars. Chapter 2. Growth of all things. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Coming out of the lounge where Chu Yunxiu was, Anning met manager Yanyu, who hurriedly walked over. Shaoan, do you have time? Manager Yanyu asked. To be honest, Anning has been staying in Yanyu for 4 years, but her relationship with this manager is quite average. The reason goes without saying much. The top management of Yanyu only wants to expand its fan base and commercial value, but the results are second. The annual income of Yanyu is actually quite substantial, but there are very few that can be used for team construction. Let me put it this way, in the league now, except for teams like Thunder and Hiwu that are not financially abundant, who have more or less bought people from other teams, only Yanyu is the only one. Currently, all members are from Yanyu's background. Thanks to the wise leadership of the senior team. Li Hua came from Yanyu, and Anning was brought by Chu Yunxiu. Last season, due to Wei Cao's impressive game performance, Deng Fuxing made it to the all-star team, while Anning was directly defeated. Therefore, Anning also received the title of Fallen Knight. And this season, both Anning and Li Hua have a good chance of being selected as all-stars. So, this season, all 3 of Yanyu's all-stars will be born into their own families. If Yanyu is willing to invest millions of dollars in reinforcements in the past 2 years, Yanyu is expected to have a chance to win the championship. But Yanyu refused. Well, Shaoan, could you advise Chu team to renew their contract with Yanyu as soon as possible? The manager said with some embarrassment. Chu Yunxiu debuted in Yanyu in his 4th season and signed the longest 5-year contract in the league with Yanyu. However, this contract will expire in the 9th season and Chu Yunxiu will become a free agent by then. And now that the 8th season has passed halfway, Chu Yunxiu has no intention of renewing his contract with Yanyu, which makes Yanyu's senior management a bit restless. After all, when other top players have only 1 year left on their contracts, they always talk to the team about renewing their contracts. Manager Yu, by the way, my contract is also about to expire, isn't it? Ning remained calm and said this sentence. This sentence made manager Yanyu's heart tremble. Yanyu really plans not to renew his contract with Anning, at least not with Anning as a professional player. Anning gained some memories of making silver weapons due to a car accident, so she also made some silver weapons in Yanyu. Yanyu means that Anning wants to serve as the head of the Inwu-RD department in Yanyu. As for the vacancy in the lineup after this, Yanyu wants to promote a female player from the youth training to take over. If it can be guaranteed that there will be no relegation, Yanyu even wants to directly replace all the contestants with women and eat up the traffic in this area. Speaking of which, it's also funny. This female knight player was peacefully promoted. So, manager you cannot speak up. Well, this, deputy captain, and, as long as you can persuade Captain Chu to renew his contract, your contract will be presented immediately. Manager Yu is, after all, an adult in his 30s, and with just a glance, he can come up with a solution. Okay, I'll do my best. It's okay to fool other young people with this, but it's not enough to fool Anning. Growing up in an orphanage, if we could all believe this kind of empty-headed and brainless statement, Anning wouldn't have grown so big now. After Anning finished speaking, she crossed over Manager Yu and walked towards the other end of the corridor. On that side is the training room for young trainees. Just as I pushed open the door of the training room, I could hear the keyboard sounds of various axes. Yanyu has many youth training players, but unlike other clubs, half of the youth training on Yanyu's side is female. The reason also lies with Chu Yunxiu. This kind of strong female player can only be compared to Su Muqing from Jiashi in the league. But in terms of tranquility, Su Muqing's strength is not comparable to Chu Yunxiu's. This is not just a preconception of tranquility, but a difference in the people around us. After all, there is a glory textbook next to Su Muqing, while in his own home, there is only one piece. There are currently more than 20 people training in the training room, which is not all the youth training for Yanyu, but only a slight possibility of entering the first team's youth training. Speaking of which, Anning has never understood that the Honor League does not introduce staff structures similar to those in other competitions. What kind of coaches, assistant coaches, youth training coaches, psychological counselors, and so on. So, these 20 or so people are all brought by Anning. Among them, there are 10 female contestants. Among them, there are those that Anning is optimistic about, which are very suitable for accepting the sunny growth of all things. Sometimes Anning thinks that her account is tailor-made for Xiangyang. Just like Wang Jieshi's Wang Buliexing and Tang Hao's Tang Sanda. Both of these are not the first members of the account, but they perfectly match the account. Now you can tell from Manager Yanyu's words that Yanyu won't renew his contract. It's better to leave a promising assistant for Miss Yunxiu in the future. Xiangyang, you. Come out for a moment. Anning said with some seriousness. Originally, Anning gave these young players a harsh impression. Speaking of which, they are just some children, and if they are not strict, they cannot be controlled at all. Former. Senior. Xiangyang timidly followed Anning out. Because as usual, if Anning calls out someone, it is mostly to criticize them. You have been in the youth training camp for 2 years, right? Ning Ning leaned against the wall and spoke calmly. Yes. Xiangyang secretly lifted his head and glanced at Anning. Pack up and tidy up. Anning deliberately said. Ah. Captain N. Why? My grades shouldn't have reached the point of being fired, right? Why? Xiangyang seemed to have changed his appearance, and his voice also became louder. That's right, playing a profession. How can you play without being tough? Anning took out the access control for the Yanyu player training room from her pocket, and placed it in the hands of Xiangyang. Let's pack up and come to the first team for training. In the 9th season, let's go straight to the squad. Anning said. Don't forget your luggage, account card, your keyboard and mouse. Anning thought of this and gave another command. When the time comes, if you need anything, go find me or the Chu team. After speaking, Anning turned around and prepared to return to the training room. It's only 10 o'clock now, and there is still 1 hour of training time. It was only after walking in tranquility that Xiangyang realized it. Go apologize then. Xiangyang complained about his lack of calmness while thinking to himself. There are many youth training players in Yanyu, but most of them are from Mu Chuyun's outstanding performance. Only Xiangyang came because of this vice captain. She is different from other girls. She has always liked roles that can keep everyone behind since she was young. Since she came into contact with honor, she has been unstoppable in her pursuit of the knight profession. After seeing the growth of all things blocking key damage several times in the 6th season, I immediately registered for Yanyu's youth training. And now, she's about to become a professional athlete. Information that can be disclosed. Xiangyang occupation. Knight, wildfire never dies, tactics. Operation. Consciousness. Continuous. Outbreak. Stable. Courage. Command. Experience. The upper limit is 6 stars. Chapter 3. Training. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The content of this chapter is being updated. Chapter 4. League Round 21. You are listening at novelfull.audio. December 10, 2022. Honor Professional League Season 8, Round 21. In this round, Yanyu's opponent is the Xuanqi team. The Xuanqi team is basically hopeless this season. The last place cannot be shaken. It can also be said that Xuanqi's team has basically played one game less. To deal with the Xuanqi team, Yanyu doesn't need to exert all his strength. Several players from Xuanqi, namely Tang Xing, Luo Tian, and Fang Daxu, are considered professional level players. Others, either young and inexperienced, or too old, have an unsightly decline in hand speed. Their coach Zhang Yue is still a dish. Unfortunately, even as a coach, what can a retired player do? Although his student Tang Xing is pretty good, he is still a bit lacking compared to Lu Yining in the Misty Rain. In the first individual match, Li Hua from Yanyu faced Luo Tian from Xuanqi. In just 3 minutes, Luo Tian was taken away. In the second individual match, Sun Liang from Yanyu played against Fang Daxu from Xuanqi. This game is quite long, after all, the opponent is a knight. However, for Sun Liang, besides elemental mages, the most familiar ones in Yanyu are knights. And compared to Anning, Fang Daxu is not sure how much lower in grade. So, without any surprise, he took it with half of his health lost. In the third game of the individual competition, Tang Xing from Xuanqi played against Lu Yining from Yanyu. Although the strength of both sides is slightly inferior, it is not as great as the first 2 games. In a sense, this game was quite exciting. The drowsy audience in the audience finally showed some interest. And the arena competition. Chu Yunxiu appeared in the first game, followed by Feng Xiangming in second place and An Ning in third place. However, this one has completely become Chu Yunxiu's personal show. A string of 3. The opponent Xuanqi also thought that the possibility of scoring points in the ring competition was not high, so he placed the 3 main players in the individual competition, while in the ring competition, 3 weaker players were placed. As a result, Chu Yunxiu calmly picked 3 out. Chu Yunxiu is in a good mood today because she has found a new TV drama to watch, so her condition is particularly good today. So I could only grievance Xuanqi and become a qualified background board. The team game, as this is not the home game of Yanyu, is chosen by the opponent Xuanqi. The map chosen by Xuanqi is a barren land, private setting. This map is a ruins map, but in the center there is a high-altitude courtyard of the dilapidated Lord's mansion, which is very suitable for positional warfare. And Xuanqi is also quite good at this gameplay. So as soon as they entered the map, Xuanqi and his companions moved towards the courtyard. Xuanqi's Luo Tian profession is an elemental mage. Although his level is average, he is very stable and suitable for playing positional warfare. And Tang Xing can also coordinate from it. With their cooperation, Xuanqi has really won 2 team matches at home this season, but unfortunately, they only scored points in team matches. They haven't won a single game this season. But this map is undoubtedly their most trusted one. But dealing with them is also easy. Anning directly controlled the growth of all things and climbed up, followed by Sun Liang. Pastor Feng Xiangming is in the 3rd batch. As for Chu Yunxiu, he is responsible for long-range battles with Xuanqi's elemental mage. Due to the suppression of Yanyu's personal strength, Feng Daxu couldn't bear it and was taken away first. And when Reverend Xuanqi was about to treat Feng Daxu, Lin Yinchao suddenly appeared and directly harvested Xuanqi's pastor. The remaining 3 members of Xuanqi were unable to parry at all, and under Chu Yunxiu's great move, they were completely wiped out. As for Xuanqi's substitute, he directly played GG and declared surrender. Yanyu defeated Xuanqi by a score of 10-0. won the first victory in the second half of the round. In this game, Xiangyang was sitting on the bench. Although she is not yet a member of the first team, the substitute seat does not necessarily have to be a player. The team coaching staff, team owners, and player relatives can all sit here. It can also be considered a disguised VIP viewing seat. This scene was filled with a burst of positive heat. After all, in the past, she either watched Yanyu's matches through the large screen in the youth training camp training room, or waited until break time to open her computer or take out her phone to watch. It's the first time for her to watch from the audience like this now. How does it feel to sit here? Chu Yunxiu walked down the stage and asked directly in front of Xiangyang's seat. It feels super good. Under the excitement of Xiangyang, he no longer felt as timid as before. Excited too early, you still have to play in the future. Chu Yunxiu smiled and said. However, at this moment, Chu Yunxiu had some reactions. It's normal for a substitute newcomer, but bringing them here so early to feel the game environment is a bit off. Yanyu already has a knight, why bring another knight? Even just in case, it's better to wait until next season when Xiangyang officially debuts. Sure enough, Anning is hiding something from herself. Captain. Do you have anything else to do? Watching Chu Yunxiu stand silently in front of him, Xiangyang hesitated for a long time before speaking up. Oh, I'm sorry. Chu Yunxiu quickly returned to her position, and Yu read a book at www.yuyukeangshu.net. Then, with some suspicion, she glanced at the peaceful conversation with Li Hua next to her. After returning to the Yanyu team, team manager Yu Zeping found Chu Yunxiu. Yunxiu, what are you saying you haven't renewed your contract for? Where are you dissatisfied and can we discuss it? After several days without seeing any action from Anning, Yu Zeping finally gave up trying to persuade Chu Yunxiu to renew his contract through Anning, so he had to personally take action. Manager Yu, my contract is due to expire next year, isn't it still early now? Chu Yunxiu was a bit absent-minded. Oh, don't you feel at ease with the senior management now? They come here every day to urge you. Captain Chu, you also need to consider my feelings as a manager. The contract is not a problem, and Yanyu will definitely provide you with a contract that matches your value. Yu Zeping was still trying to persuade, but was interrupted by Chu Yunxiu first. If you want me to renew my contract. It's also possible. As long as you make a few good signings during the winter window, I'm willing to renew my contract. Chu Yunxiu waved her hand and said. This. When Chu Yunxiu mentioned this, Yu Zeping had nothing to say. The senior management of the team is not willing to recruit at all. It has been like this for so many years, and Yanyu's success relies solely on youth training and poaching people from online games. Let's talk about it when my contract is about to expire. Chu Yunxiu stood up directly, turned around, and walked out of the manager's office. Only Yu Zeping sat on the sofa, scratching his forehead, which had already begun to lose hair, with a distressed expression on his face. The senior management is unwilling to let go, and Chu Yunxiu still wants to recruit. Since the promoted Xiangyang cannot satisfy thinking of this, Yu Zeping took out his phone and called the person in charge of the Yanyu Guild. Chapter 5. Honor Round 22. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The content of this chapter is being updated. Chapter 6. Shu Family Sisters. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The story of Shu's sisters is advanced just to make it easier for the protagonist to run away with Chu Yunxiu. What do you say you want me to say about you? Anning looked at Chu Yunxiu in front of her with a hint of silence. Because Anning's memory only lingers until Xingxin wins the challenge championship, it is only known that these two seedlings were favored by Yi Xiu. But the question is, Yanyu already has a Lu Yining, why did he bring in two sharpshooters? Well, don't be too angry either. It's always a good thing to have new members join. Look at Li Hua and Xiang Yang, they're both pretty good. Chu Yunxiu said. You didn't agree to renew their contract, did you? Anning asked what she wanted to ask. No, I told them to take a look first. Chu Yunxiu quickly shook her head. Looking at Chu Yunxiu like this, Anning was also helpless. Forget it, troops for the enemy, earth for floods. I'll see what to do then. Anning said. The arrival of Shu Kursen and Shu Kui is estimated to be able to bear some of the popularity of Yanyu to a certain extent, and Chu Yunxiu's departure from the team will not be enough to break ties with Yanyu. Just let these two people's popularity soar rapidly. If Chu Yunxiu has not renewed his contract, then everything is easy to say. This season, Anning believes that he can still put Shu Kursen and Shu Kui on the bench. 2 days passed. Shu's sisters came to Yanyu Club. Sister Shu Kui, Sister Shu Kursen. They had just planned to study how to enter the professional circle and plan an event next year to attract the attention of major teams, but Yanyu invited them at this time. The manager heard that the two of them were twins, and his tone became even happier. He bluntly suggested that they join the Yanyu, and their treatment would not be inferior. You are manager Yu, right? Shu Kui's tone did not imply any respect, which was already their personalities. Yes, yes, welcome to join Yanyu. From now on, you will be a member of Yanyu. I will take you to the training room of the first team. Yu Zeping directly picked up the luggage of the Shu family sisters and took the Shu family sisters to the Yanyu first team training room. At this moment, the Yanyu training room. Chu Yunxiu is absent-mindedly completing daily training. Li Hua and Feng Xiangming are in multiple 1-on-1 contact with Xiangyang. Others are also busy with their own training plans. Until Yu Zeping brought in Shu Kursen and Shu Kui. That. Yu Zeping's mouth was about to introduce Shu Kursen and Shu Kui. It's training time now. If you have anything to do, come back after the training ends at 12 o'clock. Anning gave Yu Zeping a direct glare. Chu Yunxiu's personality is ultimately somewhat weak, so sometimes it is necessary to calmly take on the role of this villain. Thanks to being peaceful here, Chu Yunxiu was still able to handle the affairs of the Yanyu team. But at the end of this season, Ning Ning's contract has expired and he can leave, but Chu Yunxiu, I'm sorry, I'm leaving now. Yu Zeping lost face and naturally felt unhappy. After entering the Yanyu team and becoming the vice-captain from this peaceful moment, Yu Zeping had no way to intervene in team affairs. But unfortunately, after Anning joined, Yanyu won a quarter-finals, a runner-up, and the high-level officials of Yanyu were not very good at dealing with Anning, so they could only accept Anning's approach. Therefore, the senior management of Yanyu also decided not to renew the contract until the 8th season of Anning's contract expires. The executives of Yanyu don't need the team to win the championship, they only want commercial value. Even if you win the championship, it is still based on commercial value. Because of this, after Yu Zeping submitted the matter of Shu's sisters to the senior management was quite satisfied. Next season, with Xiangyang taking over the peaceful growth of everything, Chu Yunxiu is top class. In addition, Shu's sisters with great commercial potential, it's good to win the championship. It doesn't matter if they can't win it, as long as they don't demote. As for fans who follow grades. How much money can fans who follow grades have? How can there be so much money on those brainless fans who are crazy about making charts for Chu Yunxiu? I didn't see it. Isn't Anning, who is clearly stronger than Deng Fusheng and has a more exciting playing style than Su Bin, also not among the all-star team? After 12 o'clock. Chu Yunxiu was the first to leave the training room. She knew that being peaceful here would make it difficult for her to show her face. Li Huasun Liang and the others followed suit and walked out. After looking at Anning, Xiang Yang still didn't stay, only Feng Xiangming stopped when passing by Anning. Laoan, are you okay? As an elderly member of the team, Feng Xiangming was the first to notice something was wrong with Ning Ning. It's okay, it's just a bit tired. Anning is indeed tired, my heart is tired. After joining Yanyu and Anning, in order to ensure Chu Yunxiu's voice in the team, Anning has made every effort to enhance Yanyu's commercial capabilities. Before other teams started live streaming, Anning set a mandatory rule for the contestants to live stream once a week to maintain fan stickiness. Before other teams started selling peripherals, the Fengqing Yanyu figurines of the Yanyu team had already started pre-sales, not to mention those small items such as calendars, standing signs, and badges. With the scattered memories that have emerged, the commercial value of Yuyu reading at www.yuyukeungshu.net has almost doubled. But the boss of Yanyu is not satisfied yet, and even looks forward to more. Pay attention to rest. Feng Xiangming didn't say much either, so he could only ask Anning to rest well. And at 12:01. Yu Zeping arrived at the training room on time with Shu Kursen and Shu Qi. After losing face in Anning, Yu Zeping first took the Shu sisters to the dormitory that will be given to the Shu sisters. The dormitories in Yanyu are usually one room per person, but Shu Kursen and Shu Qi have special circumstances and it is obviously better to live together. Deputy In. Yu Zeping is about to introduce himself to Anning. Shu Kursen and Shu Qi, right. I understand. Also, Manager Yu, I need to evaluate their strength. Please leave, or be quiet. Anning turned her head and said calmly. Okay, since Deputy In knows about them, I won't say anything more. I'll leave now. Yu Zeping turned around and left cursing. Shu Kursen, Shu Qi, right. Which of you is sister? Anning returned to his seat. I am. Shu Qi was obviously a bit suppressed and hesitated as she reached out her hand. Find a place to sit. Anning pointed to the vacant space in the training room. There is a software for measuring hand speed inside, give it a try. The naming of the training software for the Yanyu squadron is very simple and crude, directly referring to the 4 words, hand speed training, and consciousness training. So Shu Kursen and Shu Qi can naturally be seen at first glance. Chapter 7. Honor Season 23 begins. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Shu Kursen 324, Shu Qi 317. Anning looked at the data on the computer, feeling somewhat speechless. This hand speed testing software naturally cannot verify the hand speed in the official game, it is only a reference value. However, the problem is that those well-known players with fast hand speed also have high hand speed when using this software for the first time. People like Huang Xiaotian and Lu Xiaobie are probably around 300 to 400. At the official hand speed, the hand speed will stabilize at around 300. Even when testing this hand speed software, Ning Ning's performance was slightly better than Shu Kursen's and Shu Kei's. Tranquility can only comfort myself that Shu's sisters are just people who have just played Glory for less than 2 years, and there is still room for progress. I'll start with my ugly words. Anning finished speaking just in time for Li Hua and Xiang Yang to return to the training room. This player Li Hua stayed in our Yanyu youth training for 2 years before joining the first team, while this player Xiang Yang stayed for 3 years. You, on the other hand, joined the first team without even attending the youth training. Therefore, I hope you can train according to my requirements. Your strength means you can start in teams like Zhu Xian Xuanqi, and our Yanyu team is the runner-up team. Therefore, I hope you can also become players who meet the runner-up team as soon as possible. The sisters of the Shu family were apparently a little quiet and could only nod at one side. After all, even the manager of Yanyu couldn't resist this vice-captain, and how dare the 2 newcomers talk back. Their personalities are indeed very young and energetic, but it also depends on the individual. Even if they don't want to admit it, being able to help Yanyu achieve a semi-finals and a runner-up in the first place, Ning has the strength and qualifications to make them dare not talk back. So, the bitter days of Shu Kursen and Shu Qi arrived. Although they also have the same training duration as the others every day, their training tasks are twice as difficult as the others. Even Chu Yunxiu couldn't bear to watch anymore. "Little brother, there's no need to fuss like this," Chu Yunxiu asked. This is not the first time she has seen these twins with cramps rubbing their fingers on one side. "Don't mess with them now, it's their turn to mess with you in the future," Anning said. Upon hearing Ning Ning's words, Chu Yunxiu stopped talking too much. Xiang Yang, who felt unfair when he saw Shu Kursen and Shu Qi being on the list so easily, couldn't help but look at Shu Kursen and Shu Qi sympathetically after seeing the demonic training of the two sisters. December 23, 2022. Due to Christmas, the league date has been advanced by 1 day. After all, the opening of Christmas activities will also affect the number of viewers of the game, so the official has advanced the time by 1 day. This game is Yanyu's home game against Huangfeng team. Under pressure from the top management of the club, Shu Kursen and Shu Qi are going to play in this match. A peaceful heart is tired, but one can only agree. Although these twins themselves have decent strength, the problem is that although Huangfeng is lonely, there are still Tian Mori and 1 or 2 stronger players present. Even if Shu Kursen and Shu Qi come earlier, it would be better to arrange for them to confront Xuanqi. "What's wrong?" Seeing Anning frowning on the list, Li Hua asked. "You are also aware of Shu Kursen and Shu Qi's strength. It is estimated that they will be beaten to tears when facing Tian Senator. I am considering how to avoid Tian Senior," Anning said. Upon hearing Ning's words, Li Hua nodded in agreement. After these few days of training, Li Hua has almost figured out the strength of these twins. That is to say, starting from a relegation team and being a substitute for an ordinary team is not a problem for dealing with a few third-rate players like Huangfeng. However, when it comes to Tian Sen, it is probably not enough. As it is Yanyu's home ground, the selection of images is determined by Yanyu. Considering that Shu Kursen and Shu Qi were previously online game players, it is natural not to choose maps that are too complex. "Tianqi, how about it?" "Private map," Anning asked Shu Kursen and Shu Qi. "Vice Captain, you can make the decision." These days, these twins have also been smoothed out by tranquility. They are even more obedient than by Qisuan Liang. "I'm asking if you can win on this map." Anning has urgently trained the twins on several maps in recent days, including this one. "Yes." Shu Kursen and Shu Qi have actually figured out the temper of Vice Captain Anning. As long as they train hard, they can answer whatever they ask, and Ning won't say much. "Okay, Shu Kursen, you'll be the first to participate in the individual competition, Shu Qi will be the second to participate, and then." After finishing talking to Shu's sisters, Anning turned her attention to Lu Yining. "Lu Yining, you're the third one to go up." Lu Yining also nodded to indicate that he knew. "Choose 3 sharpshooters, and only Yanyu can do it." Welcome to watch the 23rd round of the Honor Professional League match between Yanyu and Huangfeng at home. I am Pan Lin, the commentator for this game. I am Li Yiba. With a few pleasantries from Pan Lin and Li Yiba, the first individual match was ready to begin. The new roster for Yanyu has been released, with 2 new players and both skilled marksmen. "How do you think, Li?" Pan Lin asked Li Yiba beside him. Yu reading www.yuyukeangshu.net. This is very interesting. We know that Yanyu has a sharpshooter named Lu Yining, and his strength is also very good. It is meaningful to promote these 2 people. Li Yiba deliberately evaded his words. "Hey, in the first Misty Rain, a new contestant was sent out. We only know if it's a mule or a horse or if we have to come out for a walk." In the first individual match, Yanyu team's sharpshooter Shu Kursen faced Huangfeng team's swordsman Wan Chuanqi. After it was confirmed that Shu Kursen and Shu Qi could join Yanyu, Yanyu sent someone to contact the official to change Shu Kursen and Shu Qi's account to female, which would also facilitate Yanyu's cultivation of new popular players. The map of Tianqi chosen by Anning is undoubtedly very effective in restraining the opponent's melee professions. Tianqi, literally means, is a map mostly filled with water. In the middle of the map, there is a quite large lake, and the edges of the lake are not flat, but large and small hills. This picture can be considered tailor-made for remote professions. But it's not impossible, as long as this melee player excels in water combat, their strengths and weaknesses will be reversed. The theory is like this. But the problem is, what Anning gambles on is that the opponent will have players who are not good at water combat. If the Emperor sent Tian Mori, then Anning could only consider himself unlucky. But if Huang Feng sends this new swordsman, it will be easy to handle. Wanchuan Gi only joined Huang Feng last season, and although he has received training in water combat, he is not very proficient. When hiding underwater, I couldn't grasp the fluctuations on the water surface several times, revealing flaws and being consumed by Shu Kursen. By the time he really rushed in front of Shu Kursen, he had already lost nearly 40 health points. Chapter 8. Edges. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The content of this chapter is being updated. Chapter 9. End of Game 2 of Individual Tournament. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After bombing several guns across the shore, Yunxiu also sensed something was wrong. Although the attack distance of the sharpshooter is slightly lower than that of the gunner, they can still reach this side, but after so many days, they haven't seen any attacks from the opposite side. So Yunxiu turned his gun and began searching for the traces of Shu Kui who didn't bow his head. Yunxiu had good luck, judging the right direction. After running for a while, he saw the figure swaying past the edge of the map. So he fired his gun directly. Lu Jin Shuasher has found someone who doesn't bow their head. The Lu Jin Shuasher on the screen raised his handgun, aiming at the figure who didn't bow his head. The first shot was fired. However, the distance judgment was incorrect and fell into the lake. However, Yunxiu had no intention of hitting this blow. The distance is really too far. But as long as it hits the surface of the water, the waves raised are enough to make anyone lower their head to determine the wrong position. Shu Kui naturally also noticed. He stopped his steps and pulled out his pistol at the same time. Launched a floating bullet at Lu Jin Shuasher. I saw that the newcomer across from me dared to fight back. This skill obviously cannot hit the target of Quickie, but Yunxiu still feels insulted. Directly raising the handgun again, 3 armor-piercing shells were fired. Originally, Shu Kui was only a small bar away from the opposite bank. Under the attack of these 3 consecutive cannons, Shu Kui could only choose to jump into the lake. Shu Kui doesn't know how to engage in water battles, but now she can only give it a try. Yunxiu constantly suppresses Shu Kui's swimming direction. Under the baptism of artillery fire, the underwater environment suddenly became chaotic, and Shu Kui couldn't find her direction for a moment. Who wouldn't lower their head and constantly consume their health underwater? It's a bit dangerous. After Shu Kui fell into the water, she suddenly felt a bit flustered. After all, time was rushed, and Anning only briefly explained some key points of water warfare. Water warfare is something that cannot be learned overnight, and ordinary online game players usually do not train them, so most of them just float up after falling into the water. But Yunxiu's firepower coverage was too great, and Shu Kui couldn't escape for a while. Who doesn't bow their head, green machine gun, hit the Quickie. Finally, Shu Kui remembered to use her skills to counterattack. The green machine gun swept in the direction of the projectile and successfully hit Lujinchuoshi. Ultimately, Yunxiu can only be considered a third-rate gunner. At the moment of being hit, Shu Kui also found an opportunity to jump out. Who doesn't bow their head and still has half of their health left? The level of Yunxiu can only be achieved so much. If it were Su Muching, Shu Kui would probably drown in the lake. Knee bump. Flowing gold and breaking stones float in the air. After Shu Kui landed, the attack and defense instantly reversed. Although Shu Kui lacks experience, her age is undoubtedly stronger than mature knowledge. The main focus is on punching and killing the teacher. Moreover, in online games, Shu Kui herself is a small expert who can dominate a side. Before Yanyu invited them, many large guilds also invited them to join and become the elites of the guilds. But Shu Kui and Shu Kursen still wanted to become professional athletes, so until recently, they still didn't have a guild. In their past online gaming experiences, they have also fought against some professional players from small teams. Most of them are at this level of expertise. So in close combat, Yunxiu is not a match for Shu Kui at all. Lu Jinshuosher tried to distance himself, but whoever didn't lower their head and chase after him was also very tight. In the pursuit of both sides, the health of Lu Jinshuosher is constantly decreasing. And the biggest drawback of Yunxiu is also beginning to emerge. In high-intensity matches, his hand speed involuntarily began to decline. Moreover, there have gradually been mistakes such as not being able to connect with skills. Shu Kui continues to increase her skill frequency. Although Shu Kui, like her sister, is a very fierce player, it doesn't mean they don't use their brains. Upon seeing 2 consecutive skill mistakes on the opposite side, Shu Kui knew that the opponent could no longer maintain their form. After all, before the competition, Anning told her that the opponent Yunxiu was an older player, and she also firmly remembered it in her heart. Originally, Shu Kui planned to slowly waste time with the other party, but seeing that the other party kept making mistakes, Shu Kui planned to take advantage of his illness and kill him. Directly increase the attack frequency. Yunxiu suddenly became impatient. His wrist started to ache, but he didn't want to give up the hard-won advantage in the future. But the more urgent it is, the more distorted his operation becomes. The players of the imperial style off the field are all sweating for this veteran. Get ready for the next one, I'm not old enough anymore. Tian Sen shook his head with some regret. Yunxiu has also reached the age to retire. Being beaten to the current state by a newcomer is undoubtedly a declaration that his career has come to an end. Congratulations to the Yanyu team for winning the second point of this game. Shu Kui's 2 Barrett snipers shattered Yunxiu's final struggle. Yunxiu collapsed. After someone lowered their head and returned to land, the almost blood-filled flowing gold and stone only took away 30% of their health. And this is still because Shu Kui wants to end the game quickly. Otherwise, even if it's 30%, you won't be able to find Yunxiu at www.zhaozuiyuan.com. Although there is a reason why the amount of flowing gold and stone blue is not enough, losing is losing. When Yunxiu returned to Huang Feng's resting area, Tian Sen stood up. Thank you for your hard work. Tian Sen did not blame a 26-year-old player in the late stages of his career. Team Tian, I'm sorry. Yunxiu is very sad. He had originally planned to retire after the end of this season, but he also wanted to do his best to help the team win as many games as possible this season. But now, stepped on by a newcomer. Don't take it to heart, the 2 newcomers across from you are not weak. Tian Sen comforted me. And on this side of Yanyu. Shu Kui rubbed her wrist as she walked off the competition stage. Her explosive hand speed also made her uncomfortable. Well done, don't fight like this next time. Losing this game won't be a big deal. The peaceful words surprised Shu Kui. Shu Kui lifted her head and gave Anning an incredulous glance. Ensuring one's physical condition is the most important thing. This is just an ordinary game, there is no need to force oneself. Go back and rest for a while. You will still have to play in the team competition when the time comes. After Anning finished speaking, she turned her head and began to study the next tactics with Sun Liang. You played well. When Shu Kui passed by Chu Yunxiu also said something. This is a treatment that Shu Kursen does not have. Shu Kursen's game was basically a peaceful selection that gave her a huge advantage, so she was able to easily defeat her opponent. And this one is almost Shu Kui's own strength. So, Chu Yunxiu would say this sentence. Chapter 10. Map Kill. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. The previous mistake of Pastor Yanyu has been corrected in the third individual match. The player sent by Yanyu is Lu Yining. This is very interesting. The three players who played in the Yanyu individual game are all sharpshooters professions. Pan Lin also felt very interesting, so he spoke up. Yeah, a team with three sharpshooters at the same time is the first time in the history of professional leagues. With this arrangement, it's probably considering having the three players compete. Li-Ba analyzed on the side. But unfortunately, the opponent Huang Feng sent Shen Wanhe. Pan Lin said with some regret. It's not that Lu Yining's strength is not good, but the strength of Shen Wanhe on the opposite side cannot be underestimated. After all, he was also one of the dazzling candidates back then. The strength of both sides is similar, and people in the industry understand this, but the audience may not be certain about it. Shu Yunxiu, who played before, directly killed the opponent, and the second Shu Qi also showed great talent in the final burst. If Lu Yining cannot decisively defeat Shen Wanhe in this game, it will inevitably lead to a decline in status in the eyes of the audience. Sigh. Anning let out a sigh. Shu Yunxiu and Shu Qi avoided the strong opponent, but Lao Lu collided. It's nothing, you don't have to worry about it. Lu Yining is quite open-minded. This matter cannot be blamed on Anning or Chu Yunxiu, nor can it even be blamed on Shu Yunxiu and Shu Qi. Although he does have a considerable emotional attachment to Shu Yunxiu and Shu Qi. Everyone wants to play a game, that's not wrong. The only mistake is that senior management values business value more. I'll help you check if there are any reliable transfer teams in the next few days. Play these games well and put in value. Anning said to Lu Yining. Lu Yining nodded, took his account card, and walked up. In the third game of the individual competition, Yanyu's sharpshooter Yugai Yezhang played against Wang Feng's ammunition expert Flash. This game is very boring. This is also an unavoidable matter. Two identical remote professions, both planning to wait for rabbits and unwilling to cross the river. So they could only shoot at each other. But to be honest, in this situation, ammunition experts are actually at a disadvantage. After all, grenades and the like cannot be thrown into the lake. And the sharpshooters' floating bullets, scattering, and Barrett sniping have no impact. After half a day of blind shooting at each other, Flash finally decided to take a risk and take the same approach as Shu Qi. As an experienced athlete, the ability to control the movement is stronger than that of Shu Qi. So, the speed of Flash memory crossing the river is very fast. But as they were about to reach the other side, Lu Yining noticed them. So Lu Yining went straight to the shore. I tried to cover it up and used Barrett's sniper, but was dodged by Flash memory. After the first Barrett sniper missed, Lu Yining immediately activated dual control, and the second Barrett sniper was released. Do you want to cover up the second Barrett sniper, or have you been? And so on. The avatar representing Flash memory on the map disappeared directly. There are only two possibilities for this situation. One is that the Flash memory is momentarily lost, and the other is that the Flash memory has already disappeared. This disappearance can be invisible, or it can be leaving the opponent's field of view. Or it can be, out of bounds. It turned out that after releasing Barrett's sniper, he instantly released a floating bullet, precise and deadly. Yeah, after Barrett's sniping ended, he immediately launched a floating bullet, which was a great test of the player's predictive ability, and Lu Yining's ability to do this undoubtedly proved his strength. Unfortunately, Flash memory was showcased vividly as a background wall. This time, luck actually accounted for a large part. Lu Yining had only practiced a few times before, but it was not stable, but he didn't expect to succeed this time. Until stepping down, Shen Wanhe was somewhat unresponsive. As soon as he was about to counterattack, he was knocked out of the map without losing much health. Who can accept this? Lu Yining silently returned to the rest area. He knew that this move was all luck, so he didn't feel too happy. Yes, at most it's because of the joy of helping the team win a point. Next, prepare for the arena competition. Anning took the table and began to study it. The map is a port town that you are very familiar with. Anning said. Chu Yunxiu directly expressed agreement. If chosen by Ning Ning, then it must be suitable for her. Ning Ning will not harm him. I will play the first game, the Chu team will play the second game, and if there is still a third game, it will be handed over to Li Hua. Anning glanced at Chu Yunxiu and Li Hua beside her. Although Sun Liang and Bai Qi can only be absent from the field, it is also an inevitable thing. Who would have let the top management push in 2 people? No problem. Li Hua nodded. And Chu Yunxiu naturally has no problem. After a brief 10-minute break, Pan Lin and Li Yiba argued for 10 minutes. The arena competition has also officially begun. In the first round of the arena competition, the core character of Huang Feng sweeps the floor and burns incense, facing the growth of all things in the Yanyu team. After Pan Lin finished his announcement, he went to Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com and waited for Li Yiba's introduction. The imperial style of this season has not improved much. Although sweeping the floor and burning incense are still strong, they can no longer compare to those top characters. However, Anning and his knightly characters have grown steadily in recent years, and there is a trend to become the first knight in the league. In this game, when the exorcist fights against the knights, it may be difficult to sweep the floor and burn incense. Li Ba said a lot, but he's not very optimistic about sweeping the floor and burning incense. The map of Port Town can be described as a fairly balanced map and is also one of the commonly used maps. The reason is simply that this picture can almost satisfy all playing styles. There are all street battles, air battles, indoor battles, and water battles, and although sparrows are small, they have all 5 organs. And this map has a lot of shading, so it's not impossible to use melee to fight long range. The reason why Anning chose this map is also because the exorcist profession is also considered a long weapon profession, and there are definitely no knights suitable for this map full of alleys in close combat. A lot of shelter, combined with the shield in Anning's hand, can also help Anning avoid the harm of sweeping and burning incense as much as possible. By the way, it can also help Anning block the fancy spells of the exorcist. However, the growth of all things now has been replaced with equipment designed by Ning Ning himself. This time, it's time to lift the ban. Ah, Director Li, isn't this equipment for the growth of all things a bit different from the previous one? In the preparation stage, Pan Lin was somewhat puzzled when he saw the equipment on the growth of all things. He remembers the last time he saw equipment for the growth of all things, which was a pure white armor. How did it turn into armor with golden threads this time?